Okay, you can share your screen.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello everyone. Today my topic is about the regulation of cryptocurrency. The title is Enabling Regulatory Compliance and Enforcement in Decentralized Anonymous Payment. First, I will introduce the background and the motivation. Then, I will present the system model and the security goals, followed by the details of the proposed scheme. After that, I will show the performance evaluation results. Finally, I will give a conclusion of the paper. We know that blockchain can record information in a transparent and unalterable manner through the use of cryptography and decentralization. Because of the good features of blockchain, such as immutability, verifiability, programmability, and decentralization, blockchain is utilized as the supporting technology of cryptocurrency. Compared with traditional money transfer, cryptocurrency can facilitate safe and easy transactions without a trusted authority. It also enables rapid payments and can greatly reduce the transaction costs. Since the nature of blockchain makes that all transactions can be accessed by each node in the blockchain network, transactional privacy is one of the most challenging problems when applying them in practice. In Bitcoin, pseudonym mechanism is employed to disguise identities of users. However, research shows that one can de-anonymize users and trace transactions by using graph analysis and address clustering. Thus, to improve the privacy of cryptocurrencies, decentralized anonymous payment is proposed, such as the Zero Cash and Monero schemes. They enable users to pay each other privately, which means it hides the payment's origin, destination, and the transferred amount. However, the strong degree of privacy causes new regulatory issues. Due to the anonymity and the decentralization. Traditional currency regulatory processes are bypassed, and the cryptocurrency can be used to conduct the illicit activities such as money laundering and terrorist financing. In the past years, many efforts have been made by countries to address the regulatory concerns. To meet regulatory requirements, the U.S. extends the existing law related to money service to cryptocurrency, and the companies working with it should comply with the anti-money laundering and know your customer regulation. And the licensing regime are introduced to protect the customers. In Canada, there are also related laws for the cryptocurrency, and the transactions over $1,000 should be reported. In reality, the exchanges and the online wallets enforce the real name identity registration. Thus, they hold a large amount of information of their users, which result in little privacy for users. Considering the privacy requirements of users, privacy and the regulation of cryptocurrencies should be both taken into account. In related works, the first paper adds a policy enforcement mechanisms to zero cash. It is achieved by using zk-SNAPS technology. The full name is Zero Knowledge Succinct Non-Interactive Argument of Knowledge. Because the use of zk-SNAP, it results in the low efficiency of users because users need to generate the zero knowledge proof. And in the second, third, and the fourth paper, there is an auditor or manager who can monitor the flow of money and recover users' identities of all transactions. Thus, identities are linked to the manager, and users' privacy is compromised. In our work, we designed a new decentralized anonymous payment scheme, which can enforce the regulatory policies and preserve users' privacy. In our scheme to achieve effective regulation, we introduce regulators in our system. The regulators first define the regulatory policies for the users, and they can recover users' identity when the user violates the policies. Here the policies include limiting the total amount of cryptocurrency and the number of transactions one can transfer in a time period. For the users in the system, they need to register with regulators, and when conducting a transaction, a user need to prove that the transaction complies with the policies. Or else the user's identity information should be included in the transaction, such that later the regulator can recover his identity. Note that if a transaction is policy compliant, the identity of user and the transaction content is protected, which means regulators cannot know the content. But when illegal transactions are discovered, regulators can recover the real identities of peers and conduct investigations on the transactions. Our scheme is designed based on zero cash, and there is a counter which is embedded in each transaction. The counter is used to accumulate the amount of the transferred cryptocurrency and the number of transfers in a time period is also accumulated in the counter. And the different transactions of a same user are unlinkable. We integrate both zk-SNAPS and the Sigma protocol based zero knowledge proof to prove the validity and the regulation compliance of transactions. To be specific, the zk-SNAPS is used to prove the arithmetic statements, and the Sigma protocol is used to prove the algebraic statements. For the system model, there are mainly 3 types of entities in the system. The regulators is responsible for generating a pseudo identity certificate and the initial counter for users, and they can also recover users' identity for suspicious transactions. Users are peers or recipients in the system. They can create an address public keys and a private keys for coin minting and transfer. The validators in the system, they will verify the correctness of transaction, and they is responsible for maintaining the public ledger. And if a suspicious transaction or transactions are discovered, they will send these transactions to regulators. The desired security properties of decentralized anonymous payment scheme with regulatory enforcement includes the anonymity, unforgeability, balance, traceability, and double spending resistibility. The anonymity means an attacker cannot obtain the identities of users. If a transaction is policy compliant, the user's identity is concealed from regulators. The unforgeability means an attacker cannot forge the signature of users. Balance means for a transaction, the total input value and the output value of a transaction should be equal. And for the traceability, it means when a transaction violates the regulatory policies, regulators can recover the user's real identity from the transaction. And the last one means users cannot spend the same coin more than once, which is called the double spending. In our system, the adversaries can eavesdrop the network and obtain the transactions of users. And we assume users and the validators are in position. They have the public keys of regulators, and they can establish a secure connection to the regulators. And we assume the majority of validators in the system are honest, and only valid transactions can be accepted. Before going to the details of our scheme, we first briefly introduce the building blocks. The first one is zero-knowledge proof of knowledge. It allows approver to convince the verifier that a statement is true without leaking any information except the validity of the statement. Sigma protocols is an example of the zero-knowledge proof. Sigma protocol is protocols are interactive zero-knowledge proof protocols, and there are three moves in a Sigma protocol. First, the prover will send a commitment to the verifier, and the verifier will generate a challenge and return it to the prover. Then the prover will send the response to the verifier. For the ZK snarks, it is used for proving the arithmetic statements, and it's also non-interactive zero-knowledge proof. And there are three algorithms in a ZK-SNARK protocol. The first algorithm is key generation, which generates the proving key and the verification key in the system. The proof algorithm is used to generate the zero-knowledge proof, and the validators can use verify algorithm to validate the proof. The arithmetic statements is like this figure. There are some add gate or multiply gate. And for the last building block is the decentralized anonymous payment schemes. There are several algorithms. The first one is setup, which generates the system parameters, and the create address algorithm. A user can use this algorithm to generate private keys and public keys. The mint algorithm. A user can use this algorithm to generate a coin. And a mint transaction is uploaded to the blockchain. For the POW transaction, it is used to transfer coins from a payer to a receiver. In a POW transaction, user spend the old coins and create new coins, and the new coins are sent to the receivers. So the input of the POW algorithm is the old coins and the secret keys of the pair and the value of coins. And the output of the POW algorithm is the new coins. And in the end, the POW transaction is uploaded to the blockchain. Zero-knowledge proof is included in the POW transaction, and the statements include the input coins are minted, which means the coins are valid, and the pairs own the address secret keys and the input coins, which means the pair has these coins. And also the output forms should be well formed, and the sum of input coins is equal to the sum of output coins. Means the coins are balanced. For the verified transaction algorithm, this algorithm is run by the validators. They check whether a mint transaction or a POW transaction is valid. And for the receive algorithm, this algorithm is run by the receivers. The input of this algorithm is the key pair of the receiver and the blockchain ledger, and the output is the received coins. In our construction, because we add the regulatory enforcement in the payment system, and in our system, the regulatory policies include the following policies. The first one is we limit the total amount of cryptocurrency one can transfer in a time period, and the number of transactions one can conduct in a time period is also limited. For example, regulators can limit the payment up to 10,000 in a month, and the total number of transfers cannot exceed 100. And the last one is, if a transaction violates the policies, the real identity of the user can be recovered by the regulator. So for the detail of our scheme, there are also several algorithms. The setup algorithm generates the system public parameters, and a user should register. Users should register themselves to the regulators, and who will generate users pseudo identity certificate and the initial counter certificate. this is the interaction process. The user will obtain the pseudo identity certificate and the counter certificate. For the create address algorithm, a user can generate the address public key and the private keys, and a user can and here a user can only generate one public key and private keys. For the mint algorithm, users will generate coins and upload it to the blockchain. In the mint transaction, there is a serial number. Crucially, due to the nested commitment, anyone can verify that here the commitment in the mint transaction is a coin commitment, and the value is V. So in the mint transaction, the KVS and the CM is public, but the private key AFK and the public key APK and the serial number is not known by others. In the POW algorithm, the POW algorithm is used to transfer coins between different parties. The inputs are 2 old coins, and the outputs is 2 new coins. This is the generated new coins. In our construction, there are two. In the POW algorithm, there are two parts of zero knowledge proof. Pi 1 and Pi 2. Pi 1 proves the correctness of the transaction, which means for in this POW transaction, the 2 old coins are minted coins, and the pair owns these coins, and the exposed serial numbers are serial number of 2 old coins, because if you spend this coin, you can spend it twice, so you must expose the serial number, and the validator will check that this serial number is not exposed before. And the two new coins must be correctly generated, so the receiver can spend these 2 new coins in the future. And the last one is the total number of input coins is equal to the output coins. The Pi 2 is used for regulatory policy enforcement, and the statements include the first include the current counter is a valid counter, because the counter is used to accumulate the coins, the coins a user spent in a time period. And so the counter should be a valid counter. And the second one is the counter is updated correctly, which means the amount of cryptocurrency and the time transferred is accumulated. And the third one is the input in the Pi 2 is the same as the input in Pi 1, because we need to connect these two zero knowledge proofs. And the last statement is according to whether the transaction comply with the regulatory policies. If there are different actions. If a user comply with the regulatory policy, which means the transferred amounts and the number of transfers are within the limit in a time period, the identities of the pair and the transferred value are protected from other users and the regulators. Otherwise, the regulators can recover the pair's identity according to the pseudo identity certificate, which is according to this certificate is embedded in the transaction, and the regulator can recover the identity by using its secret key. The first statement is the current counter is a valid counter. And this is the statement, the expression form of the statement. We will not go details of this. And the second one is the counter is updated correctly, which means the amount of cryptocurrency and the time transferred is accumulated. We can see here V is equal to V1 plus V2, and the V is is accumulated in the new counter. Third one is the input in pi 2 is the same as the input in pi 1. We can see here the A1, A2, A3 are used in the pi 1, and the V1, V2 is used in pi 2. And we must prove that they are the same values in these two proofs. The last statement is because when user need to prove that the transaction comply with the policy, which means the transferred amounts and the number of transfers are within the limit in a time period. So here, range proofs are used to prove that these values are in a range. And if the user cannot prove that the transaction meets the policies, he should add the pseudo identity certificate in the transaction and there's no proof of it. According to this, the regulators can recover the user's identity to investigate the transaction. In the verify algorithm, the validators verify the validity of the zero-knowledge proofs. So there are two cases. If the transaction comply with the policies, the validators will add the transaction to the blockchain. Otherwise, a validator will send the transaction to the regulator, who will investigate and deal with it accordingly. The trace algorithm is used to recover the user's identity if the transaction is a suspicious transaction. We omitted the security proof in this presentation, and for the experimental results, since compared with zero cash, we add the algorithm of register, trace, and zero-knowledge proof pi 2 in Paul transaction, which is used for regulation compliance. For the register algorithm, the overall consumption for the user is about 6 milliseconds, and the time cost for the regulator is about 10 milliseconds. For the trace algorithm, a regulator first verifies the validity of the signature and the zero-knowledge proof. Then it will recover the identity of the user. The cost of the regulator is about 6 milliseconds. For the zero-knowledge proof type 2, we tested the overhead for the users and validators when a transaction complies with the policy. And this table shows the results. Note that in the Pi2, the user need to prove that the counter is a valid counter. We generated the corresponding proof and verify statement by invoking the LabelSnack library and using the Gross 16 algorithm. We test the time cost of key generation proof generation and the verification algorithm. When the number of the leaf nodes change from 8 to 1024, which means the depth of the tree grows from 3 to 10. The experimental results are shown in the left figure, from which we can see that the computation time grows linearly with the depth of the macro hash tree due to the number of nodes on the authentication path is the same as the depth of the tree. We can see that when there are 1024 leaf nodes, it costs 10 seconds to generate a proof. The verification for a proof is fast, and the time spent stays at a constant 7 milliseconds when the depth varies. We also evaluated the storage cost of the proof key, the verification key, and the generated proof when the depth changed from 3 to 10. Results show that the sizes of the verification key and the generated proof are fixed. From the right figure, we can see that the size of the proving key increases as the depth grows. But the verification key stays the same size. So here we conclude this paper. We propose a decentralized anonymous payment scheme with regulatory enforcement. And in our scheme, users' privacy is protected, which means peers and payees of transactions and the transferred amounts are protected. Moreover, the validity and the regulatory compliance are proved by the key snacks and Sigma protocols. If a transaction violates the regulatory policies, a regulator can recover its real identity. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Leon, for your great presentation. Any questions from the audience?
Hi, Leon. I have a question.
Hi.
In the simulation result, in that page, I remember the matrix is the performance matrix is time. So, for example, for the regulators, different researchers may design different regulators, right?
The algorithm may be different.
Oh, so the So if we want to say whether this algorithm is good, so the only matrix is the time. I'm just curious.
In
So,
because in this kind of schemes, and we mainly test the time of different entities to show the efficiency of this algorithm.
oh, so different algorithms, both those different algorithms can achieve the function that they can find the user's name, for example, right?
Yeah, the regulator can recover user's name from the pseudo identity certificate. This is issued from the regulator, and the regulator uses the secret key as they can directly recover the user's identity.
Is it possible for a regulator to make a mistake?
No, because in the scheme, the regulator, after they generate the pseudo identity certificate, the regulator will sign the certificate. So it will first verify the certificate, and then recover the identity from this.
Oh, okay, I understand. Thanks for your explanation. Thanks.
Thank you for your question.
Okay, thanks for Ying's question. Is there any questions? If no, we can stop here. And just a reminder that all the audience can fill up the evaluation form. I've just put the link in the chat box. So thanks for everyone's attendee.
Thank you.